focus on the pieces that are in the show right now. It's not often that I get to talk about particular pieces in depth, but I want to say thank you to everybody who's here, and the history that I have with some of the people here. Like, if you want to find out about my early work, read Anne Spalter's book, where she actually talks about the piece that I had in the Code Show that Roz curated in 94. But the delight of this whole group is the new people. And I've had long, wonderful conversations offline with some of the new people, and I want to keep going with that. So I'm going to try to get through this pretty quickly. Here's a close-up of, actually, the full title of this is Copepod in a Red Sea in Old Cairo. But when I was pasting it into the form, I missed the whole rest of the title. And when I did my run-through with the scientists yesterday, they said to make sure it says Old Cairo. That's, this is the other piece that's in Plankton Universe. This is the piece that I had in the last Techspressionist show online. It's a really good one to show what I'm doing right now, which is this odd combination of an ancient Hebrew manuscript that was done in Cairo in 1008, so more than 1,000 years ago, and plankton that were collected by Jason Shadler at the University of Rhode Island, an undergrad student working with Pierre Emerick postdoc. And when I combined them, they immediately went together. I don't know why. I mean, I really don't know why they went together, but they fit visually and they fit conceptually. As one person said, the building blocks of life. It's plankton. Without plankton, we can't exist. Here's the piece that's actually behind me too. They produce more than 50% of the oxygen that we need for our survival. And without the sense of humanity going on more than, as a kind of continuum. I use the Hebrew manuscript as a stand-in for that idea of the continuum of humanity. So I'm jumping ahead here to the beginnings of Plankton in the Red Sea, where I took a fragment of the manuscript and had some plankton on it, and that had a drawing of a copepod, and I combined them. And I came up with this image, which I really love, but as soon as I got the proofs from it, it was a problem. The proofs were very flat. The colors were very unprintable. When I put it into CYMK, kind of more printable colors, it looked like this. So this became my torture. I had already told Colin it would be in the show, and I kept doing version after version of drawing on it. I loved on the right where I made the copepod a little fatter and threw some lines on it. But it really became very difficult for me. I just started drawing on it. And for me, this is what I arrived at in the end. Making it so that the lower corner really receded in space or was on a different plane. And it was really a lesson I love working on paper because of drawing back into it, but it has a lot of challenges in terms of, just to step back for a second, my sources, you're probably saying, well, you don't know that much about plankton. So I just thought I'd do a quick screen of some plankton to give you an idea of what I'm working with. Ciliates that I absolutely love. Everybody loves ciliates. And here are my drawings of the ciliates. They're just great. Plankton and drawing of the dot is an early stage of Plankton Universe, which is the piece in the show. I actually liked it in this state. It was larger, and I ripped it because I had output on cheap paper. And so it started to go through stages again of drawing on it, photographing it, reworking it. And all of these I really like. Seem to be, here. And this is what I came up with that was on my website. This is a detail, and I think it's important to see the detail because you can see that in and out of the computer, which seems to be a theme with a lot of people. I love that my work is, that we're talking that Anne Spalter talked about going in and out of the computer, but as we went around the night of the opening, the Wednesday when we did our virtual opening, I heard so many people talk about in and out of the computer. So you can see I went back and forth many times. And in this detail, you can actually see a photograph of the plankton, of a diatom chain, and then some of the drawing. And it was just this in and out, and also the remnants of the Hebrew manuscript which you can only see if you're seeing it up close here over on the left. So here it is. This is the piece. I have it in a white border here because people love it when I break the border on paper. They just love it. So I did that with both the pieces. I don't know why. It's something that people want. Oh, now I know it's not just a print. So one of the things I also wanted to talk about quickly, formats, because here's some of my earlier work that I printed very large. These were on vinyl and mounted. These people may have seen at Creative Tech Week. They just rolled up like, almost commercial signs, and they were body sized. And these were printed on fabric and hung in a show that I had in New Haven a couple of years ago. And I've spoken about these before. But for me, at this point, seeing the show, I am beginning to wonder about the on paper framed for this particular show. So I just wanted to throw that out there as something to talk about when we have discussion time. I'm watching the clock. I want to thank all of these people who really contribute to my work. I'm the artist embedded in the Menendura Lab in the School of Oceanography at the University of Rhode Island. It is an unsalaried position, but it gives me access to learning about plankton, which were really essential. And so I'm learning about climate change and things that are really vital, and other groups that I belong to, particularly, all of these groups have had online meetings since lockdown. And it's just been wonderful to get all of this feedback. And this is my contact, my website. So if you want to know more about my earlier work, you can get to that. And then I have one more quick slide, which is, I think, my latest piece, just to show where I'm going next. What I find interesting about this piece is that the plankton and the Hebrew alphabet, which, by the way, I'm illiterate in Hebrew, so it's just kind of a stand-in for history and culture. They start to look exactly the same. I mean, I don't get it. They're really different, and they're really the same. So the thing is that I just got my work printed on satin. I'm going to get clothes made out of it. That output can be anything. Okay.
Cynthia, how about 1 minute if you want to say anything about, and maybe you did, but the perspective of the idea of women working in art and technology.
Oh, yes. I made a note about that, and then I forgot.
Doesn't have to be long, can't be, but I'd love to hear your thoughts.
In fact, in the earlier talk that I gave with Techspressionists last year, which is online right now, I brought up what I was doing when I started. Way over here, you can see a painting that I did that was shown in New York in 85. Greg Little was there, but he's not on now. And I showed some digital work at the same time. And it was really interesting to me because becoming digital opened doors for me. I mean, people talk about women in digital, but in fact, when I was a painter, there were all these expectations because my source material was from nature. So that meant, and I was a woman, it couldn't possibly be serious. In fact, Bill Zimmer wrote in the New York Times that I did pleasant but ordinary paintings of flowers, but really exciting digital work. I think that was in the late 80s. And, when you go back and look at last year and see them side by side, or go to my website and see some of the paintings, you'll see, the paintings were not pleasant but ordinary. The only thing that made them pleasant and ordinary was that I was I have found the digital is closing a bit as it gets more acceptance. I mean, it's unfortunate from that perspective. In the 80s, it was wide open. You have a good idea. We don't care where you live. We don't care what your gender is. We don't care what your color is. We don't care about anything. Good idea. We want you. And I love Techspressionists because I think Techspressionism that idea forward as the rest of the art world may be.
That's great. Great to hear that. I guess also as women, as we evolve, we have to also be, get used to criticism and I think we are, but I hear you. That gets into a whole mixed bag we can talk about later, but thank you so much. That was a wonderful presentation.
Okay. Thank you.
It's funny how your pieces look almost spatial, going into outer space or inner space. There seems to be an analogy there, that in-out dimensionally is different.
That's really the point. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll talk some more later.
Thank you so much. Verneda Lights. So glad Verneda could be with us. Found your art very interesting at the show. And I'll just say, I liked it when you said something about y'all or something. I come from the South, and I've heard that the South, y'all is now a cool word to use. I don't know if you heard that, Verneda. But the reason it used to be very uncool, but now it's genderless. So y'all is the way. Take it away.
I titled my presentation, We Still Have a Long Way to Go with respect to femtech. Remember that a slogan from the late 20th century that said, "You've come a long way, baby, to get where you've got to today"? Well, I started reading about women in tech, and I was somewhat discouraged by what I found. And I will share some information with you. So women in tech are, in my opinion, bold, creative visionaries who succeed against the odds. There are so many ways that we move forward, but when I talk to you about the statistics, you can see how we've taken 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Here's some information, some data. In 1985, 37% of all computer science bachelors were women. But as of 2010, 2011, the number of female computer science bachelors had decreased to 17.6%. So we have half as many women going in computer sciences now as we did in 1985. Women in tech make less money than their male counterparts. Okay? Now the income for U.S. women in tech is 2.5% less than that of men. So that chimes in with what Ann Spalter noted about how the men were being paid higher amounts for their artwork than were the women. Only 19.2% of all Fortune 500 CIO positions are held by women. That's pathetic. As of 2022, only 19% of all leadership positions in tech are held by women. 50% of all U.S. businesses are owned by women, yet only 2.3% of venture capital globally went towards the funding of women-owned startups. That's appalling. Advancement for women in tech is difficult. We are 3.5 times more likely to be at the age of 35 and older and still being kept in a junior position as compared with men. Less than 5% of men remain in junior positions after the age of 35. The tech sector also ranks low in diversity, equity, and inclusion. And in 2020, this is the breakdown. The 2020 tech workforce had the following racial breakdown for women, among women employees. 14.1% were white, 9.6% were Asian, 2.2% were Black, and 1.7% were Latin. So the lower income and limited chances for advancement takes its toll on women in tech, health-wise, and in terms of work-life balance, because women are twice as likely to quit the tech workforce before the age of 35 than their male peers, and 3 times more likely to experience burnout. So why are we having all these difficulties? It's a cultural thing. And I don't know why it persists, because women in leadership roles is good for business. Fortune 500 companies with at least 3 women in leading positions saw a whopping 66% increase in their return on investment. So women bring different perspectives, and different perspectives make for better problem solving capability, increase yields through greater degrees of innovation, and innovation means profit. So to talk a little bit about myself, I came into the art sphere and the tech sphere through medicine. My undergraduate studies were completed in 1974. I went to Bryn Mawr College, which champions women's rights and women in education in all realms of the public sphere. I published a book of poetry while in undergrad, and I was mentored by Audre Lorde. My MD degree was obtained in 1978 from the University of Pennsylvania Perelman School of Medicine. And I continued my poetry performances while in medical school. It was how I paid for my medical books, which costs, a lot of money. They're very expensive. I obtained my MBA in 2010. It's from Strayer University. I had to do it remotely. And my initial arts identity is that of a performance poet. My first book of poetry, Dog Moon, was published by Sunbury Press in 1976. And Dog Moon is still available on Amazon.com. And it is included in rare book collections concerning the small press movement at Emory University. I segued into visual art in 2000. And by 2003, in art. When I was a physician poet. And this comes from the 500 Women Scientists website this year for women's hit called Biography, Women in STEM Fields from across the globe. And my biography was included. And for the first time, I see they've included the art alongside the medicine, which is something I fought very hard for throughout my career. And it says here that she's Verneda Lights is a retired physician from the Deep South. She's also a published poet who performed as a spoken word artist through most of her medical career. Now she is an Afro-surreal, Afro-futurist, Techspressionist, and Gullah visual artist who documents the daily lives of the South Carolina Lowcountry who are in danger of cultural extinction. A photo montage combined my self-portrait alongside composite photo Cassini spacecraft that it took on its descent to merge the two in an effort to communicate to the audience what anxiety feels like when you're in a caregiver situation. Here we have the example of our art is medicine and medicine is an art. Here is used as therapy, art therapy to deal with the stresses of caregiving.